Oh, good evening, everybody. Thanks for being so patient. Thanks for being here.
How's that, Mom?
What?
We love you, Mom.
Okay, I didn't even try it that well. But, yeah, most of Dad's friends have passed. I'm sure he's up there. Anybody who knew Dad know he loved to talk. So I'll bet he's talking a lot right now. And unfortunately for you, we all like to talk too. We inherited that part. So the boys and I will speak this evening. And we're just going to pay tribute to our father. Miss him already. He was a wonderful man, a good dad, always positive and inspirational. I can remember so many good times with him. He would always be uplifting, and he would just always have good things to say. And the railroad part of him was always a pain in the neck because he wanted to know everything I was doing all the time. And always had advice when I'd get mad at work or something. He'd say, "You better appreciate that, son," you know, and on it went. But he was such a fine man. It's been hard to imagine life without him, you know. But the greedy party or the selfish part says you wish you could had a few more years, but that's just the way we think, and I'm sure we all feel that way. But oh, so many good stories. I don't want to carry on too much, but he was one of the few fellas I ever knew that could. We'd go up to the White Mountains, he'd throw a fishing pole in the water with 2 hooks, and he'd come out with 2 fish. Almost every time. Am I right, Thomas? That was amazing. Yeah, I just, so many phone calls when I went away, and never once did I hear him say anything negative. He was always like, "You be the best man you can be." Always inspired me to do better in life, and he said, you know, always appreciate and carry on the Gaston name, you know, take pride in it. And I always tried to uphold that with him. He was a good man. I'm sure all of you had fond memories of him too. He'll be sorely missed. There's so many times that in the last couple of weeks, the March Madness, where we always used to bet on games. I actually picked the phone up and called him one night. Mom answered, and it was kind of just hard to believe at that point. But he always was positive. I always loved that about him, and he'll be sorely missed. So we just carry on, and he taught us to be the best that we can, and I'm sure that we'll try to aspire to be that. So we love you, Dad. We'll miss you. God bless you, and we'll see you someday at the end of this journey. Thank you, guys. Larry, with that, you want to say something, Larry? Come on up and say a few words. I mean, you had good stories, I'm sure. I didn't. Yeah.
I don't know. It's,
Yeah.
I'll do it as best I can. This is not my forte.
He's got some good pictures up there, Larry.
Yes, he does.
Yeah, good man.
Yes, he was, and yes, he is. He's still with us. He's laughing as I'm crying, you know, which is kind of funny and sad, but that's the way it works. Yeah, I miss him so much. But so glad I got to spend the time I did with him in the last year. You know, that I got to come and live this way. We had a lot of good times. It was, like Randy said, he was very, always kind, you know, he's kind of, you know, like everybody else, we all have our moments. But I came across a letter the other day. A a letter that he read to himself. He had been hurting for quite some time. And he fought, and he fought, and he fought harder than I could ever imagine. Because to read the letter and to hear him say how much pain he was in and how he just didn't know if he would make it, you know. And this is a letter from 11 and a half years ago. And to think he'd made 11 and a half more years, you know. And that last couple of weeks there when everything was so good, you know, just to that little tiny fall. You know, it's just crazy how it works. So I tell the people that I know is that this hand is very, very sad. But this hand is very, very happy because he's out of pain. So, you know, we miss him, love him. You know, just, I don't know what else to say. He had a wonderful life. You know, he loved Mom, he loved us, he took care of us. This kid, it's going to be weird not having him around. But we will move on. And with Pop, God bless you, Godspeed, no more pain, happy times. Happy times.
It's hard to get up here and not get emotional. So I decided, I was sitting there last night, I said, you know what, I'll get up there and I'll lose track of what I'm gonna say or I'll forget something. So I wrote mine down and I'm gonna just read it to you real quick what I thought. So these are words for Dad. So here's all that physically remains of my father. But in my heart and my mind, there are hundreds of thousands of memories, wonderful memories, of him that I've accumulated over the last 68 and a half years, and I will cherish for the remainder of my days. There's nothing more painful in life than losing someone that you love. Each of us here has experienced a horrible and devastating feeling. There's no words to really describe it. Today we'll celebrate Dad's memory with a few words, a few prayers, a few personal thoughts on how he touched our lives. Each and every one of us a little different somewhere or another. My earliest memories of Dad, my memory's not the greatest these days, but with about 56, 57, 58, we had moved out to Arizona. He was working for the railroad down around Bowie. Kenny knows that area well. Bowie, Globe, San Simon, Wilcox. At that time, him and Mom were working jobs out around Yuma, Gila Bend, in the middle of nowhere, in the middle of the summer with no air conditioning. Taking baths in the irrigation ditch, living in the car, till he went somewhere else. What? Don't say that. Mom always does this. She says, I've had enough, I don't want to hear it, but too late, Mom. We always lived by the railroad tracks, most of our early lives. When he lived down in San Simon, he owned a goat named Inez. You remember that goat, Mom? He had a German Shepherd named Lucky. Dad had the goat, not only because he loved animals, but because he had ulcers real bad, and the goat's milk. And the only one, he was the only one that could drink it, the rest of us, you know, but we got used to it in time, but he always had a goat like that for years, and he loved that goat. I remember him smiling and laughing a lot. As you can see in the pictures, well, maybe not that one, but a lot of the other ones he's smiling a lot. He's got a big smile. And the brothers and I inherited that from him. We always knew that he was happy with his wife and son and the situation he had in life. Being in the railroad's not the wealthiest job in the world, but it's a pretty good one. It's pretty secure. After that, we lived on top of the railroad station in Wilcox for a lot of years. I think it was from like 59 to 70 or something like that. You remember that, Mom, walking up 17 stairs above the depot? The train tracks were about from here to, well, halfway to the, well, they weren't even that far. I'd say the train tracks were maybe from the bathroom, you could sit there, and the train tracks came to about right here. So we used to watch TV. Friends would come over. Bobby Wright, David's here. His brother was a friend of mine. He would come over and they would sit there, and we had a little gas stove. It was freezing in the winter, go crank up the gas stove. Or at night when you're watching the show, you get right to the best part of the movie. So you're just going to hear who did it, who killed him, and about that time, the train comes running through. So you run over to turn up the TV, hear what you had. It was kind of a fun memory anyway. Anyway, we lived on the top of the station where my brothers and I grew up. Dad worked downstairs, so it was pretty close to work. As kids, we could climb down the back and play on the freight boxes and stuff. We had a big dock. We'd slide down on the bikes, the dirts, and all the neighborhood kids would come over. We could throw rocks at the train when it came by. Sometimes firecrackers and the hobos that used to be in there, but we won't bring that up. And anyway, that was a good place to grow up. Dirty, dusty, train would come by, you could see the dust come down out of the ceiling. It's a wonder we don't all have some form of emphysema, but it was a good place to grow up. One of the pictures there, they have since changed the depot to a, what is it?
Chamber of Commerce.
Yeah, Chamber of Commerce. So they moved the whole thing back about 30 feet and updated it. But it was a good place to grow up. Anyway, Mom and Dad used to love playing cards with their friends. They'd have poker nights. We were little kids. I don't know what we did, how they kept us out of the way. The 3 kids, but they used to have a great time with their friends, playing cards. They were Elks Club members. Mom was president of the Emblem Club. Dad was a member. My grandfather's a member. I think, Randy, you're a member, aren't you?
Now, he made me.
Yeah, he made me do it. Yeah, he wanted me to do it, but I never was much of a club membership sort of guy, so I never did. Anyway, they love socializing with their friends. As Randy and Larry mentioned, Dad loved to talk. Matter of fact, we go over to the house, he's following us going out the door, and we're trying to go home. He said, well, wait a minute, I just want you to read this paper, do this, and see that. He got a little lonely in his last few years. Now, Mom's doing that, so even she's saying, well, Mom, can't you stay a little longer? You don't have to leave, right? So, it's fun. But anyway, Dad's job took him to Global Miami. And so he's got from home during the weekend, but at home on the weekends he would come back down. He had to lay down the law for the 3 boys that Mom was trying to raise. And she as soon as he walked in the door, said, here, these are your kids, you take care of them. 3 boys at a young age, you can imagine. Yeah, sorry. Anyway, he enjoyed that. He used to have Kenny, you would appreciate this, up there in Miami, he had, didn't you work up there with him? Yeah. Do you remember that hamster he had in the station there? It was a guinea pig. You probably, in Miami, he was working there, and it was a filthy place. I mean, the floors were just, and he had this little guinea pig with the hair going 5 or 6 different ways, and people would be in there talking to him, and this guinea pig, but you turn it over, it's like completely black on the bottom, but you put it down and run it off, and people go, yeah, I thought this was the strangest rat they ever saw. But he had that for a pet, and he would keep that when he was up there for years. I remember that. Anyway, and when he came home, he'd also help his mother and father, Hilda and Robert Lyle Gaston. He was an only son. He grew up in western Pennsylvania, where he met and married my mom, Dorothy, on March 24th, 1951. After returning home from a tour of duty in Japan, he went over there after the bombing in Hiroshima area and spent a little time over there. But he decided, I guess, the military wasn't his cup of tea, so he got back out and came back and went to work. Eventually started out doing the, what was it, telegrapher? You know, where you did like Morse code and all. He started out doing that and worked his way work over the years. Met lots of people on the railroad. He loved the railroad, and it was good for him and his family. Well, not for me. I didn't particularly like the railroad, but everybody else did. It was a wonderful thing. Anyway, unfortunately, he passed away just 1 week short of their 70th anniversary. It was just a week short. He died on St. Patrick's Day, so he's up there having a cold beer with St. Patrick right now, I'm sure. Dad loved to fish. Oh, he liked to fish. Up in the White Mountains, like I said, Larry alluded to it, thought, bring back a couple fish. He'd take us up there, we'd go up there with a bunch of the railroader friends and spend a week up there in the pines. It was a lot of fun. We'd stay in a tent. This was usually every August. Lots of stories, beer, and liquor used to flow around the campfires at night. Camping out, I must mention this was never Mom's favorite thing. We would stay in the tent, Mom would stay in the car. Because she wasn't real fond of the bears or skunks that would come in every night, you know? That was kind of funny. Anyway, Mom often slept in the car. She was not fond of the bears or skunks. He also loved sports. I think he was hoping one of us would be some great football player, baseball player or something. None of us were. None of us were very good at sports. And I don't think Dad was that good either, but he sure liked to watch on TV and talk about it. And he enjoyed his sports. Until his last few days, he was still watching basketball and loved to have bets with his son, Randy. He settled for armchair sports. Anyway, he still smiled and laughed a lot. I missed many of the next years as I was in college for 3 years then. And then I joined the Army and I was gone from 73 to 78. I lived over in Europe for 5 years in Holland. I remember how excited he was. Because I was late 77, early 78. Him and Mom got to come over to Holland, fly over there, all the way to Europe and visit their son. So we did a little tour. He took him to England, Holland, Germany, Switzerland, Belgium. Mom got a bracelet. She had a little trinket. She'll see something on TV to this day, and she'll say, "Oh, look, I was there. I remember seeing that. Do you remember that, Mom?" No. You remember your bracelet with all the little trinkets from Europe? We'll talk about that later. But we had a lot of great memories in a short period of time. And I was real proud that they would come over and visit me, spend some time. Brother Randy also came over and lived with me for a year, courtesy of Mom and Dad. It was a good experience for him, and the parents were very proud of his improved behavior. My one regret upon my return to the States was when I was finishing college, I got into a motorcycle wreck back in 1979. I spent 4 or 5 weeks in intensive care. I was actually legally dead in the ER. I had 105 units of blood transfused. And when I finally regained consciousness, I looked up and there was Mom, and I'm intubated, I can't talk or anything like that. Their hair had turned white, both of them. But they said something to me and I recognized what it was, and I just said, I gave them the victory sign. Do you remember that, Mom? Okay. And I wanted a Pepsi really bad, but couldn't have it. So anyway, it took such a toll on them that they aged overnight. I could still see their hair and the word lines. And I regret doing that to them during their life. Anyway, God had other plans for all of us. Dad lost his mother in 1980, his father in 1986, but gained a grandson and a granddaughter in 86 and 89, and others, grandchildren. Since then, Randy's children. Mom and Dad both retired and enjoyed the remaining years in Catalina, aging gracefully, but all too quickly, it seems. Mostly healthy, but with increasing needs, aches, and pains that come with age. I decided in 2009 that I needed to leave my home and friends in Mississippi and come back out and spend some time with Mom and Dad. For all those years I'd been gone. It was the best decision I ever made. The last 11 years, we bonded and became closer to my parents than ever. I'm thankful that the Lord gave us this time together. Dad is always taking care of others. Now we boys have a chance to help him and Mom. He was a good man, a good father, a good husband. He was not perfect. He was often angry and frustrated in these last few years, dealing with limitation, restrictions, loss of driving, pain, aches. But he was grateful for his life, his wife, his children, and often said so.
So how do you say goodbye to someone you love so much? You can't. So you cherish those precious memories each and every day and thank the Lord for his time here on earth. We ask that pray for his spirit in heaven until we're all reunited once again. Thank you. God bless all of you for coming.
Yeah, that's wonderful. Boy, that's a lot of history there. You all knew him, and he was just a giving soul, and we sure appreciate everyone's love and support today. If there's anyone at this time that would like to say anything, please feel free. A lot of memories out there. Bob, you covered a lot of ground there. That was a lot of good stuff.
It's pretty good for one night.
Yeah, not bad. We sure had some good times with that man, and appreciate having such a good father. So with that, we'll conclude, and we'll just give our best to our dear dad. He's loved and cherished. So thank you all. We'll gather for a while. Oh, and Darlene would like to say something. Thank you, Darlene, please.
I'm a lot shorter. So I met Bob and Dorothy at church, and we joined the church at the same time. And of course, we sat down at church, and everybody asks, where are you from? So of course, I'm also from Pennsylvania. So of course, as soon as Bob heard I'm from Pennsylvania, I'm his best friend. Then he hears my brother works for Norfolk Southern Railroad. I'm more than his best friend. Then he finds out I have 2 little girls. Not just little girls, but little girls. He became like their next grandpa, because my family's all back east in Pennsylvania and doesn't have any grandparents here. So Bob and Dorothy became like their next grandparents. Excuse me. So I've known them now for about 19 years. So we start talking and become very good friends. So of course now, at this point, they start talking about their son, Bob, who's also a nurse. I'm a nurse. And he says, you need to go to work at Oro Valley Hospital. Well, at this point, I'm working down at Keno Hospital, and then I go over to St. Mary's Hospital. And he goes, no, you need to go work with Bob, because Bob's the best, and he's in ICU, and you gotta go work with Bob. So where do I go? I go to Oro Valley Hospital. And I worked with Bob for 7 years in ICU. It was awesome. So, Bob retires. Bob and I still keep in contact. We text each other all the time, checking up on how they're doing. And we decided now we go to Chinese food. So we go out for lunch and we go to Chinese food. Bob and Dorothy love Chinese food, don't you? Right? Don't you like going out to Chinese?
Yes.
Yeah. So our thing now is we would go out for Chinese food. So when Bob was in the hospital recently, what did he ask for? Chinese food. So last week, I went out for Chinese food for Bob. So I have very dear memories of both of them and of their family. And my children do as well. My children now are 18 and 14. And they love them as well. We love your family. Thank you.
Thank you, Mary. Well, thank you, everyone. I mean, there's not a whole lot more we can say about what a great man, and he'll surely be missed. And, let's just gather and share the love right now.